Do you want to make your right-click menu look like this? If yes, then let's get started. Hello everyone, and in today's video I will show you how to add custom options to your context menu. Now do note that this tutorial involves the registry editor, but the changes that we will make are minimal, so I don't think it's necessary to make a backup. So, when the registry editor opens, you should go to HKey classes root, directory, background, shell. Then in the left pane scroll down and you should probably see two keys, CMD and PowerShell. A key is like a folder and inside of it you can add different values. Okay, let's create a new key and name it Notepad. The name of the key represents the name of your custom function that will appear in your right-click menu. Now, with the key selected, right-click and choose New String Value. Here you can specify if you want an icon for your custom command. The string should point to an icon file, and for most programs, typing the executable followed by a comma and a 0 should fetch the default icon of the program. This is because some programs might have more icons for some functions that will appear as numbers 1, 2, 3 and so on. Okay, create a subkey now under Notepad and name it Command. This is the actual thing that will run when you click on the option. Edit the default string and simply point to your program. Most inbuilt Windows apps respond to simply the name without the whole path, meaning you won't need to type in C Windows System 32 notepad.exe, and as you can see, it works. Alright, now what if you want to create a lot of functions? Well, you could go with a submenu that expands right and reveals more options. This is also pretty simple. Again, start with a key that will be your submenu, for example, Settings. Then create a string value subcommands and leave it empty. Now there is a commands store where this subcommand string will fetch the available commands, but that way it's more difficult, so when we leave it empty it will assume all the information is here and will create the appropriate subkeys. But before we get started, if you want an icon from the Windows default ones, you can also choose from DLL files, dynamic link libraries. In System 32 there are three main sources of Windows icons: imageres.dll, shell32.dll, and if you want an icon for different devices, there is ddores.dll. You can see the available icons in each of these DLL files using the Change Icon dialog box. This, however, is kinda difficult, and I recommend using a third-party software like Icon Viewer, which adds this tab here in Properties of the DLL, or you could go with Resource Hacker. Still, that's far from perfect, because, as you will see in a moment, the numbers here do not correspond to the actual count of the icons in the DLL file, and you will need some trial and error to get to the correct icon number. Yes, this is ddores.dll, useful if you want some option in your context menu that opens some device settings. So that cog icon I chose from imageres.dll appeared as number 114, but actually it's 109 when you point to it in this dialog box. So with that being said, here's how to actually add subcommands. The logic is exactly the same. The key settings that we added acts as the parent, and we need to add a key shell, just like the one that exists for the background context menu, as you can see. Leave the shell key empty and add another subkey, in this case for control panel, for example. From here onwards, it's exactly the same. The key takes an icon string and you have the command subkey that will define the behavior of the new command. To open control panel, it's enough to type in control.exe and its icon, respectively, is control.exe, 0. When adding all the commands you want, it's important not to make mistakes like this, because you could end up with commands that don't work, or even worse, an explorer that freezes as soon as you right-click. Actually, I had this problem while researching for the video, especially if you by mistake edit the default value of the parent key. Okay, so we added control panel, but what about settings, which is not a traditional executable? Well, you can follow the rule that any command here is accepted and will run, but there are some specifics. Now, in Windows there are these Uniform Resource Identifiers, or URIs for short, which allow you to open apps like their hyperlinks. An example would be mail to, which opens your email client. So the settings app also has its own MS settings URI, but you need to call Explorer in order to define the URI. The same would be if you want to open an Explorer shell, like shell libraries for example, that goes with a name or GUID. You have to specify that it's a Windows Explorer shell. As you can see, the commands work perfectly. Okay, now if you want even more commands, no one is stopping you from creating yet another cascading submenu below. I'm not aware of any limit to the amount of submenus apart from their general usability and practicality. So in the example here, I will add the registry editor and group policy. Again, you have to create a subcommand string and leave it empty, then a new shell key where these commands will lie, and finally the commands themselves as subkeys. First their names and if you want their icons, and second the actual commands. Of course, you have to make sure not to add the information in the wrong places because Windows Explorer doesn't tolerate mistakes at all. The command for the registry editor is straightforward, however the one for group policy is a bit different to what you might expect. Group policy follows the same pattern like the Windows Explorer shells, where you have to specify Explorer in the command itself, meaning you have to write mmcgpedit.msc. And with the command properly formatted, you will see in a moment it works. So after a whopping 6 minutes and 15 seconds, you can see the results of our hard work. Thanks for watching, hope this video helped you, and I'll see you in the next one right after you subscribe to the channel.